So I watched episode 1 of the new Marvel series Moon Knight. I was tired, but I knew I wanted to check out this show, and let me tell you, I wasn't disappointed. I've checked out the previous Marvel shows on Disney Plus such as WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Hawkeye, but they didn't really do it for me. WandaVision was the best out of the 3 live-action versions, but my favourite was the What If series, which I thought was fantastically designed, edited, great story, great action, great pace, and just a great series all round. So with Moon Knight, I wasn't expecting much. I was happy to see that Oscar Isaac was involved and that it was being directed by an Arab, Mohammed Diab, but I wasn't really convinced about that accent.
I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
But those worries fell away when I watched the first episode. As I said before, the previous shows were hit and miss, but this show gets so much right that I feel that it's in a league of its own now. When I saw the Marvel logo appear before the first episode, I almost didn't want it to be there. Not that I hate the usual Marvel sequence before any Marvel film or series. Normally it gets you psyched up for the show, but Moon Knight already sets a very different tone. It's dark, realistic in the sense of character themes, mental health, etc. It's almost a darker tone than Doctor Strange, which is probably my favourite Marvel character after Iron Man. Dare I say this goes into DC territory in terms of darkness, and I like it. It's not all doom and gloom though, there are some fun moments which is great and typical of Marvel. It doesn't take away from the tone of the show at all. Of course, these are all first impressions based on episode 1, but if the rest of the series is like this episode, I think it's going to be one of the best Marvel TV shows so far. Ethan Hawke as a villain already sets the dark mood of this series as this creepy messianic figure. Oscar Isaac brings that top-tier gravitas of the actor's world. You know, he's been in so many interesting, complex movies, and he brings that energy to Moon Knight. His character feels very authentic, very grounded in realism. In the end, his accent comes across as quite convincing and natural.
Why did you call me Mark?
And especially if you're British, you can get the type of sensibility that he shares with his mother, the way he talks to her, how light-hearted things can be when you innocently lie to your parents. It's a very human, a very grounded, realistic character, which is done so well. A great performance by Oscar Isaac. He works in the National Art Gallery, places I've been as a child, and these types of things hit home because even I used to buy little figurines of ancient Egyptian Sphinx cats on my school trips. That's a tongue twister. Anyway, so for me as a Londoner, this grounds things even more in realism. I also have Egyptian roots, so this is even more closer to home. His boss is a nasty piece of work, and probably my only criticism of this episode is that she's a bit too rude for a British person, and that may be due to how Americans perceive the British people. I'm not sure, but I think she was a little too cruel. But you do get bosses like that, so it's not something that ruins the episode itself. I think one of the genius elements of this episode is the Arabic music they use. Very well-known tunes that people can relate to, especially from the Middle East, and it just gives it a much more of a sense of relatability and representation actually. But I think that's great to see a director in a Marvel series adding his own flavor, his own music that's rooted in his own culture. And I have to commend Marvel for doing that because Marvel doesn't have the best track record for representing other cultures, especially in the past. Most of the foreign characters are all evil to some degree. Let me know if you'd like me to cover that in the future. Anyway, as the episode progresses, you really fall in love with this character. You know, you relate to him. He becomes very much a likable figure and you kind of want him to succeed. You want him to do well. You fall for him in a way. But something that really struck me the most about this episode is the fantastic score by Hisham Nazih. He's done an incredible job with the first episode at least, so I'm hoping it's just going to even get better as the series progresses. It's like taking all of the best of the Mummy score, those epic tones, those scary choir vocals, the excellent instruments he uses, and he blends it all into this epic score, which was probably one of the most impressive things for me. It doesn't sound boring, it sounds new, it sounds fresh, and I think he's done a wonderful job. I highly commend him for that. Excellently directed by Mohammed Diab. I'm so incredibly proud of this man and the work he's achieved with this first episode. And I'm hoping that we're going to see in him a fantastic series for Moon Knight. And I hope it really does launch him even further in his career, because it's well deserved. I think it's great to see an Egyptian director directing something about ancient Egypt, but it's also set in modern day, so he gets to draw from both those things, the ancient Egypt and the new Egypt, the modern Egypt. And I take my hat off to him for criticizing Wonder Woman 1984 for its portrayal of Egypt and how they made it look, and some of the offensive things that they did with that movie to represent the Middle East. Even I drew on some things that I noticed, but there were other offensive things too which people could have taken as offensive. And something like that wouldn't have happened had Wonder Woman 1984 been directed by an Arab or by someone from that region. And I think this is what makes Moon Knight special. It's being made by the right person with the right intentions and with the knowledge of culture behind it. I think that's very important. This is a big moment for Arab filmmakers, and Mohammed Diab is off to a great start with this show. Moon Knight feels closer to how the Daredevil series, which was on Netflix, was. It's closer to Daredevil, it's that dark. It has almost the same gritty feel as Daredevil, so Moon Knight seems to be the Disney Plus version of a gritty MCU show. I love the creepy horror elements in there. I love the light-hearted humor that he has. I love the sincerity in Oscar Isaac's performance and character. And I miss seeing ancient Egypt. I miss movies like The Mummy. I was hoping that the new Mummy with Sofia Boutella and Tom Cruise was going to reignite new mummy movies of ancient Egypt, or just ancient Egypt movies in general, because my favorite scenes in the Mummy movies were the past scenes of ancient Egypt, how spectacular they looked, how grand and lavish that lifestyle was. And it's really nice to see elements of this reappear in popular culture. So just to sum up, Moon Knight seems to be your American Gods TV series meets Daredevil. It's got those elements of mysticism and horror mixed with that Daredevil series grit. I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the upcoming episodes. Oh, and extra brownie points for saying that Avatar is an anime. I had to put that one in there. I'm a huge Avatar stan, so when he said that, he made me instantly fall in love with him. And honestly, I didn't know anything really about Moon Knight. I knew there was some fantastic artwork by Bill Sienkiewicz, which I adore. So now the show has introduced me to Moon Knight. He may actually be my new favorite MCU character. I, for one, am very much looking forward to seeing the rest of this series and what it has to offer. I enjoyed this episode so much that I want to watch it again. So what did you think of Moon Knight episode 1? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to see more of my reviews on other things in media, check them out here. Thanks, and until next time, see you soon.